Our job is to give the designer and the actor what they want and need to help with the whole total look of the costume. Hi, I'm Lynne Mackey, and I'm a theatrical milliner. Theatrical purposes. Hats are a very important part of the costume. They are the punctuation mark at the end of the sentence. You need to be able to finish the picture with the hats. I started doing craft work as a small child. My mom really loved crafts. Both she and my dad in college were involved in the arts and were very supportive when I decided to go to school to be a costume and scenic designer. So I went to Carnegie Mellon University. Once I left school, I went to San Francisco and was making shoes, which was not for me. And the hat maker there asked if I wanted to go to the Alaska Rep and do their hats. And I said I'd never made a hat before, and he said, "It doesn't matter, it's Alaska." So I packed up and went to Anchorage and worked there and fell in love with making hats. And from there, I worked in regional theaters from coast to coast, kind of just learning the trade hands-on. I came to New York and started my own business, foolishly thinking that people would come and not knowing anybody in New York. Lynne Mackey Studio has been in business for about 16 years, and bit by bit, the business grew. We got more people. Right now, we're 4 milliners working in the shop. And when we're crazy busy, we've had up to 13 people all crammed around machines and tables. Our specialty in this shop is real hats. Bonnets are my most favorite kind of hat to make. I love them. I could sew bonnets from day to night, every day of the week. Just finding out how it was made at the time, trying to make that translate into what we need for stage, and then all of the piles of ribbons and bows and jewels and flowers that go on. I love all that fussy stuff. As one of the reasons that people come or people need a theatrical milliner to build their hats, and why they can't just go out to a store and buy a hat, is because one, it's very particular to the show and the fabric choices of the costume and the character, but also each actor's head is very different. And once you've got them in a wig and a prep and a mic pack or two in their heads are now larger than you can buy a hat for at the store. So we do make hats to fit specific people. We begin this whole process of working on a show when the costume designer comes to us and go through and try and find out everything we can about the period. Hopefully they're going to bring us research that has inspired them. So then we make a mock-up for size and scale, and we take it to a fitting where they're fitting the costume so we can see the entire thing together. And hopefully we're getting choices for fabrics to know what fabrics are in the costume. And then we're showing the designer if it's made out of felts or straws, different things that we have to offer them and trims that we have, so we know what we need to go and look for, or things that they need to bring to us to use. And ideally, and the fun for me, is to make it as close to the way it was made at the time. And that's where it starts to get hard. So many of our vendors have closed their doors. And many of the millinery materials that were used, obviously, 100 years ago don't exist anymore. And then we find out from the sound designer or the choreographer that something's changed, and it almost always falls on us to solve the problem with the hat. The lighting designer has problems if it keeps the light off the face of the actor, as does the actor, of course. And the sound designer doesn't like it if there's a brim, because the brim bounces the sound in a funny way. And dancers have problems with hats if they're not weighted perfectly, because it throws off their spins. And so we're working with all of those people. The choreographer and the sound people more closely, probably, but we've also worked with directors and and lighting people as well. There've maybe been 10 or 20 shows I've worked on in my career where I know the contribution that we made as milliners made an artistic statement in the show, and the show would not have been the same without those hats. We did, not all the hats, but a large portion of the hats for Kiss Me Kate. Our leading lady walked downstage, take off her sunglasses and look up at the theater and turn all the way around. And as she did that, what you saw was this hat that was coat feathers that were all swirled in a very Chanel kind of way on this hat. And you really noticed it, and it was nice to know that the work that we did added something to the show. It's hard to say that you have a favorite show, but I have to say Color Purple may have been one of my favorite shows. And there was a cast of women that loved wearing big hats. So the fact that the hats, the brims might be big, didn't bother them at all. They could carry it off. We were able to create all of the trimming for the show. We could handmade. We handmade ribbons. We handmade flowers. We were able to give a lot of time to the detail on the hats, and then to have it actually make a statement on stage. I love what I do to make a living. I love it almost every single day. I lose my sense of time and space completely, and I'm just lost in the act of creating, working with all of the different materials we work with, finding the answer with your hands, letting your hands actually think for you to get a fabric to drape or whatever. That's what I love about what I do.